Nebraska. It's time. It is time to talk about Nebraska. The Cornhuskers went 4-8 in 2022, and I'll just say this, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I had picked Nebraska to do some great things. I thought this was the year for him and Scott Frost to get over the hump and make a bowl game, and Casey Thompson's coming in. He's going to light the world on fire. Casey Thompson actually played pretty well when he was in the game. When he was healthy, he was a serviceable quarterback. Scott Frost, however, you know the deal, wasn't the guy. Got fired pretty early on. Enter into the fray, Matt Rhule. Was in Carolina for a while, rebuilt Baylor, rebuilt Temple. I think they hit a home run with Matt Rhule. And you hear the phrase home run hire thrown around a lot, and that's probably cliche. That's fine. I truly believe they hit a home run in hiring Matt Rhule, and I'm not backing down from that statement. But let's just take an honest look. Because anytime you hear the words home run hire, you think, man, year one then, all right? Year one, we're winning the Big Ten. Year one, we're going to Indy. Year one, we're doing all these exciting things. I mean, okay, let's calm down a little bit on that. I think Matt Rhule is great, but let's take an honest look at what's going on right now in Lincoln. The first thing is the roster is under construction. You've had 14 transfers out. Probably some of those you're okay to see leave. You've had 8 transfers in. And Matt Rhule's been the head coach for 17 minutes? So they're making a case to turn over that roster. Because the reality is they need to get tougher now. That's why Matt Rhule was brought in. That's who Nebraska has been when they're really good. And Matt Rhule knows that. He knows that they allowed 190 yards a game last year. He knows that they allowed 8.5% of the time of their snaps was a sack. They only rushed for 112 yards. That's the trenches. That's the line of scrimmage. Teams that play important games in December and in January, they win the line of scrimmage. And so Matt Rhule is making an effort to revamp that whole operation. He knows that has to get better, both on the recruiting trail, yes, but in the transfer portal. So I promise you, this second wave, post-spring, they're going to take inventory. He can play for us. He can't. He can help us. He can't. Let's go to the portal. They're going to make some more moves on the portal. I promise you. I promise you, whether it's offensive or defensive, I venture to say both, they will acquire at least one more individual in the trenches in the portal. Feel pretty confident saying that. They're also going to add some versatility. They acquired Billy Kemp from Virginia via the portal, 5'9", 170 pounds, proven commodity at receiver. And the reason this is interesting is because Marcus Satterfield said, yeah, we got to inject talent into that wide receiver room, but even more so the versatility piece. Like we just said, look at Clemson. Tons of guys with a lot of stars next to their name. Guys that played in, you name whatever all-star game you want to name from the high school level, they probably played in it. But what has their issue been? What have we been critical of them? A lot of guys that are all kind of just the same mold. 6'4", 6'3". They can go win the jump ball for you, yeah. Can they pop the top on the defense? Can they make that safety have to backpedal? Can they hurt you in space? This is not a dunk on Clemson kind of segment, but I'm telling you, Nebraska understands, hey, we got to have more than just one style of play here. And adding Billy Kemp adds another wrinkle into that. I think they'll still continue to be active in the portal with the receiving core as well. I mean, Josh Fleeks is a guy who I got to see up close and personal. I'll just say this, one of the shiftiest human beings I've ever seen in my life, just in terms of when the ball was in his hands, making people miss in a phone booth, seemed to be his specialty when I was around him. Don't know why it didn't work out at Baylor, but he is a guy that I think could have a huge year in Nebraska. Keep an eye on Josh Fleeks as well as Billy Kemp, both kind of in that jitterbug, smaller frame, great quickness, great agility sort of mold. Before we move further, if you haven't yet subscribed, we'd love to have you at the party. A lot of you Nebraska Cornhusker faithful have joined us this year. We're so glad to have you at the party, man. Also follow me on the socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. So that's the roster. You had a 4-8 roster last year. You understand, we got to revamp that. We have to change that now. Because the way that college football is today, Junior, is when we're expecting some ROI. So they're doing some of that. Also the staff. And this isn't a huge surprise with Matt Rhule. This isn't a huge surprise with the way that college football works. But I just want to make sure we get this out there. The way that he is building his staff can be summed up in 2 points. One, he's betting on his people. People that he has a relationship with, people that he has worked with before, people that he trusts. 2, he doesn't care how it looks. He doesn't. I mean, Marcus Satterfield had some criticism around him before the end of the year at South Carolina. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. He doesn't care what you think about him. He trusts him. He worked with him at Baylor. He knows what makes Marcus Satterfield tick. Evan Cooper, secondary coach for Baylor. I believe he coached corners at Baylor, but he's going to be secondary coach for Nebraska, a name that you might not be super familiar with. He doesn't care. Evan Cooper's his guy. He believes in Evan Cooper. He believes in his process. He believes in his people. That's the way that Matt Rhule rolls. This is the name that maybe got the most buzz when he got hired. Garrett McGuire, wide receivers coach, was a walk-on quarterback at Baylor, and he's only 23 years old. Okay, so the headline that you're reading is Matt Rhule hires 23-year-old wide receiver coach. You dig a little deeper, you say, oh, he's the son of Joey McGuire, head coach of Texas Tech. And so a lot of the Twitter fingers are saying nepotism, he didn't really earn that, whatever. I'll just say this. I got the chance to be around Garrett McGuire. And as a walk-on quarterback, as someone who was undersized, there was not a person in that locker room that anybody respected more. And I'm not just saying like a Rudy kind of respect, like, hey, that guy goes hard. It was, no, when Garrett McGuire speaks, you listen. He had coached in the NFL levels, post-grad. Guy knows football. Football family, football life, now a football coach. He's a rising star in this industry, and I don't feel uncomfortable saying that. I think they got in at the ground level with Garrett McGuire. But again, a guy that Matt Rhule trusts, a guy that Matt Rhule knows, and he doesn't care that you're worried about the 23-year-old coaching his receivers. He's not worried, okay? Because when they're winning games, when they're going to bowl games, when they're playing for exciting things late in the year, nobody's going to be talking about how old the receiver coach is. Nobody's been talking about what Marcus Satterfield did at South Carolina. They're going to be talking about Matt Rhule and his process and how interesting the role has, or the ride has been in Nebraska to getting to this point, and we should have hired Matt Rhule a long time ago. That's going to be the sentiment, okay? So I want to make sure we say this. You have bought into the process of Matt Rhule at Nebraska. You have bought into the process. Now, what does that mean? It means 2023 could look a lot like 4-8, could look a lot like 5-7. Because a process, by definition, is something that takes some time. I don't anticipate this being a 2023, we're playing for, the national title, we're playing for the Big Ten title. It could happen that way. Far be it for me to ever say that's not going to be the case. I mean, heck, college football, the variance baked into the sport is why we love it so much. But I'm telling you, it's probably going to take some time. But you didn't hire Matt Rhule for success in 2023. You didn't hire Matt Rhule to play for big things in 2023. You hired Matt Rhule to win the Big Ten in 2025, 2026. That's what you hired him for. So with that being said, enjoy the process. Keep an eye on the details. Keep an eye on who they acquire via the portal. Keep an eye to the message boards. Husker Online, the On3 Nebraska site that we have, is phenomenal. Some of the best folks in the game covering Nebraska. They're going to give you the intel, give you the whispers around different things with spring practice and fall camp. Hey, we do this differently now. We never did that in the Scott Frost era. This is much more detail-oriented. Keep an eye on that, because those little things will eventually add up, and they'll add up in the forms of wins. Now, when that happens, I don't know. But I promise you, this process is proven. It has worked many places. It has rebuilt many a program, Temple and Baylor namely. But in the first year, it might take some time. So with that being said, enjoy the process, trust the process. It's going to be a good time in Nebraska. I promise you. Matt Rhule is the guy to get that thing headed in the right direction. Again, from the moment that he was no longer the head coach in Carolina of the Panthers, believed wholeheartedly he was the right guy for the job. So sit tight, trust the process, think things are looking up in Nebraska in the not too distant future. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.